They finally straightened out Channel 79, Pua. I was going to call you, and then I realized it's not your problem. It had to be a... That's okay. That's all right. What was it finally?
A dead piece of equipment.
Dead piece of equipment?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know. I said, "Gee, did I lose it or something?" You know. I mean, when I wake up at 2 in the morning, that's how I fall back to sleep. Okay, this is the Thursday, June 15th, 2017 meeting of the Woodbridge Board of Finance. It is our final meeting of the year. And public comments, I would just like to say, at the end I'm going to say something else, but for right now, I think we're in really an unprecedented situation as we close the year out. We've got our budget, and I think we did a fantastic job of putting it together with a very reasonable tax increase. But we have the situation where we have no idea where we're at with the state, and there's a possibility from what I've seen that they might not have a budget by June 30th, which would be really interesting. So just as a discussion point, I talked to Tony about what do we do once we find out July 10th where we're at. And I guess there's a few options. One, depending on the amount, we can take it out of fund balance, which wouldn't be a popular idea.
You could.
Number two, we could send out a special tax bill.
You could.
Which I would favor, because then everybody would know this is because of what the state has done. Or number three, I guess we could have our July bills, and then we'd have to send out a revised January bill to incorporate it. So, are there any other options?
You can do it through cuts.
Cuts.
You could say, even though we budgeted for $500,000 in road paving, cancel the road paving program and put that towards the. I mean, that's another way to do it.
All right. So it's unprecedented, but we're going to be dealing with it. Well, the new Board of Finance will be dealing with it, whoever that is. So, okay. Any public comments? Tony, Administrative Officer report.
So we have our report here through May, and the surplus is at 553, and so we go through some of our usual. There's a surplus in grants, largely due to special education, excess cost grant of $100,000. The interest income continues to generate additional income. They just raised short-term rates just recently, so that has a positive effect on our interest because we have a lot of short-term. It's mostly what we have, and then we sold the golf equipment for $70,000. Those are the big revenue highlights. Surplus, we have a number of items, utilities in general administration, which is town hall. It's $10,000 savings. There's a vacant position in the assessor's office now that's part-time. There's a savings there. The center building, another area where we saved in utilities, is $11,000. It's a combination in both cases of gas and electric. Waste management is a surplus of about $40,000. There's some lower rates, the tonnages that we had there. Parks Department, we eliminated a position mid-year, and that was a foreman position, so there's a surplus there, $30,000. Debt service, we just explained before, was a timing issue on the Beecher School project, so there was a surplus of $122,000 there. That process has begun to, we've closed out the project, and the process has begun to finalize the grant, so we're on our way there. Finally, in benefits, there'd be a surplus of roughly $100,000 due to healthcare savings. So there's a $550,000 surplus this year. Now,
When was the last time it was this large?
well, the main reason for it being this large, and I can tell you,
The last time it was like 440.
so we give 400. We have
Yeah.
$400,000,
Right.
So it's basically $150,000 over the that'll actually go back to the fund balance to add to it. And a lot of that is because knowing where we were headed with the state, we've made a lot of we've done a lot of work on trying to keep the expenses down and really keep an eye on stuff.
I mean, it's really fabulous.
And there's a
Sandy, you all did it.
Well, but I think that all of these did not really come in fully
Yeah.
until now.
Yeah, and there's a couple others that are.
As a compliment that everybody worked together to
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
this
And
year.
again, as I've said numerous times, we really do have terrific
You,
department heads.
you
and
set the tone on what
Right.
you expect the departments
hear
to
us,
do,
right?
and they hear you and they listen.
We give them as much as we can, whatever we can, but they're also attuned to the tough situation that
As-
we're in and every other time.
As one of our employees said, called me up the other day. He wanted to know about an expenditure. He said, "You know, I tend to spend this like it's my own money." He said to me.
No, I know exactly who that is.
So I said, "I know that, and we all appreciate it." And we went through,
But what's nice is that they trust that you do know that, and when something comes up, it's an easy conversation
Sure.
that you are willing and able, that they come with a good response, and they could trust you to vet that. And I think that by maintaining that relationship, which is kudos to you, it doesn't always exist, that we're able to have that good working relationship between the administration, all the departments, and the board. So it's truly an
It does.
asset, that one of those things that has gotten to be just so standard, but it's very meaningful. It's not standard or ordinary in any regards, and kudos to you.
And again, as I said, department after department after department, we all know the wonderful people we have from, I don't want to say, but I do want to say one thing, is that, I'm sure you know, my sons play softball. They play on different teams in Woodbridge, they play together in Orange. We travel around a lot and see a lot of different fields. The softball fields in Woodbridge are spectacular. I mean, they are so pristine compared to other fields. Not even knowing, just take a ride down here to center field, that first, it's magnificent. I mean, the people who play on it, you play on some of these fields, literally, balls come up and hit you in the face. I guess that's, Adam does that, takes care of that?
Yep.
I get confused as it is.
You got it right.
But Adam is the one he takes care. They're amazing, and I'm sure. I'm just talking about the two softball fields. I'm sure the grass. I'm sure the Little League fields up at Acorn are
Adam is
great.
now in charge of not just of all the fields, but now he's in charge of all public works
Yeah.
operations.
Right.
So
Which is great.
he does a
Kudos
great job.
to him, and I know there's been a lot of discussion about types of fertilizers he uses and chemicals and non-chemicals, but I got to tell you, unbelievable job on the field. So thank you. And again, I think we also have to thank both of the Parsons for doing a lot of work up at the country club, at the pool, right?
Yep.
I've heard that from a few people, that they've done a lot of amazing work up there. So they're two good guys, I'll tell you. Okay, Tony, the Woodbridge Board of Ed, Sandy, I'm sure you're going to cover the,
I will do that.
but it looks like, just steal a little bit of your thunder, it looks like they got that number down.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And last night
And they plan
I'm
to
sorry.
do
go
more.
ahead. Yeah, I was just gonna. That's what I was gonna say. That's what Bob said last night at the meeting. Yeah.
Now, why don't we'll wait until we do
Okay.
liaison. Okay? Anything else, Tony?
Yes, I do have an other. So back in 2009, town issued $7 million for the country clubs
Really?
in debt, as you all know. And
I forgot about that.
since 2012, we've been paying down the debt in annual taxable notes.
Right.
So
I think we've had this discussion.
we have, and every year I like to bring this up because the notes are due, and we have a sale on July 5th. So,
Currently, not to interrupt you,
Sure.
currently, where are we at?
we're maturing 5.25, and we'll be renewing 4.9 because we have to do a principal payment.
We're below 5
So
million.
we're below 5 million, right? So the issue is twofold: taxable versus tax exempt, and long-term versus short-term. And so we basically decided to continue the process of issuing taxable notes, partly because if we were to issue tax exempt bonds for this, you would have to have a reasonable expectation that the property would remain as open and recreational space in a tax exempt use. And so that sort of limits your
Yeah.
future potential. And so It's cheaper, clearly.
The rates
And
are cheaper if it's non-tax.
right, and in this
100%.
low rate environment, it would, would be helpful to lock it in for the extent of the term. But so that's the issue with you doing it.
So what happens if we do this? Somebody comes in and gives us a great offer and wants to buy it. That would screw it all up, wouldn't it?
Well, what happens is you get IRS will
Yeah,
come in and audit you.
right.
Yeah, and depending on the facts of the circumstance, there could be some financial penalties related to it.
Yeah, because if you take the benefit of lower rates and then within
Right.
a year and a half,
Right.
Right.
So the bond,
You've changed the purpose.
the bondholders will be liable to the
It would look
bondholders.
suspicious.
Right.
That you have
Exactly.
no intention of keeping it.
Right. Exactly.
So
Right.
it sounds to me like
What's
for
the-
now.
We don't have a
Yeah,
choice.
what's the difference in the rates, John?
So I did a little calculation. It's roughly 2% on a long-term basis. So if we were to, for the extent of the term, and on the short term, I think we were talking maybe 1%
Wow.
to less than 1. So it would be, if we issue $4.9 million, you're probably 40,000 ish.
Too much of a risk, it seems to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we discussed it at the Board of Selectmen last night, not to vote on it, but just to talk about it. And I think it really would be impossible because from what Joe Fazzi said, we would have to be able to say that we have no reasonable expectation of any other use. And given the new board coming in, I just don't think we could do it.
Right.
So it really took it off the table.
But you should have this discussion every year, just
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
because
Yeah. Absolutely.
it's a pretty big event.
Absolutely.
That was it. That was my other.
Any other comments on that? Okay. Approval of suspense list. This is the one we have to vote on and approve. And again, it's not the end. It's not the end of them. It's just
Right.
by
But
state
thanks to
statute.
Pat for totaling that.
Yeah, that's,
Right.
by state statute, we have to move it off of our balance sheet onto a suspense list, but Pat continues to actively, and a lot of these, my cousin's out here, not happy.
Matt, don't say that on television.
Don't say who it is.
No, there's no way she doesn't live in Woodbridge, she never, I gotta find out about that. I'll call her tomorrow. I'm serious.
We're helping declare.
No,
this
my
business.
wife takes care of her, but she doesn't live in Woodbridge. Okay, I'll find out tomorrow. I think that's, well, wait, Barbara M. No, I don't think that's her. No, that is, I might have her. Okay, don't worry about it.
Well, it's leaving you in suspense.
Anyway, I'll find out. So I will move acceptance of the suspense list as presented by our tax collector, Pat Crisco.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Where's the one I have to sign?
It's there. She gave
Probably in the blue phone.
In the blue folder?
Even
Blue folder
Paul
that I always
knows.
take?
Come on, man.
Oh, is it?
Isn't this one?
Well, this is a copy.
Well, that's what she gave me. She gave me a copy of the first one.
Oh, you want me to sign this one?
Yeah, because she see, yeah, go ahead, sign that one. Yeah, I know. That was a firm.
It's like our newest member. That's what that is.
Okay. Funding requests. Looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Some of these we've talked about.
Yeah, before we get into the funding request, I
Yeah.
just want to bring your attention to the sheet here, the summary sheet. So currently, there's a $335,000 balance in contingency after all of these funding requests are discussed. And so that is not included in the number I gave you. And so that could be higher based on how contingency winds up the year. The 553 that we discussed doesn't include any funds remaining in contingency, so it could be higher.
Oh, okay. Okay, so the first one, as I'm crunching on ice over here, is a request for funding. It's a special assessment from whatever that is, SCR, COOG, for a multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. I think this has something to do with the state of Connecticut's problem, right?
Right.
So I'm going to move acceptance of request for funding 1617-32 in the amount of $4,821.
Second.
Go ahead, Tom.
The SCROG had undertaken a grant to do a a multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan, which is essentially a document that allows us to apply for FEMA grants as they relate to certain improvements, or essentially what it says to mitigate your environment for certain hazards, like work for flooding. And so this was supposed to be entirely paid for by a grant, but one of the grants was cut or canceled by the state. And so in order to continue with the project, the COG had to assess all the members, and all of the other towns are going forward with it. There's a list of towns in the memo attached: East Haven, Guilford, Hamden, Madison, Milford, all the members of the COG. So this is our portion.
So we really don't have a choice.
Not really, if
Unless
you
you wanna
want
drop
to, unless
out
you
of
want to drop out of the plan, which
You wouldn't-
I wouldn't
you wouldn't want
recommend.
And I thought it was interesting that they're dividing it equally across towns. It's not based on population or anything else. It's
Right.
like this is, all shares are equal.
Right.
Okay, anything else on this? All those in favor? Aye. Next this is one of the things we moved up, right, Tony? From,
Correct. From the budget.
This was on the budget, and we decided to move it up to use contingencies to not have an effect next year. It's $30,000 for the servers, which we'll have Tony talk to us about. So I'll move acceptance of request for funding 1617-33 in the amount of $30,000.
Second.
These are the servers that, as it indicates here, for all town functions. It's GIS, assessor, building department, recreation, tax collector. The only thing it doesn't have is our Munis financial system, which is cloud-based. That's our town file server. And we actually reviewed a little bit of this in our IT, if you remember our IT group. And so this is that request.
And we did look at it, and the service seems, it's like a reasonable expense.
Okay. Anything else?
Your committee, your tech.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It's reasonable. The servers are very well powered. We expect them to last 5 years.
Right. That's the idea. They'll last at least 5 years.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Another one that we talked about is the steam boiler at the center building, which is cracked, meaning it's not functional.
Right.
But there's a second one that is, and if that one fails, we got problems.
Right.
So, but there's also, if I remember correctly, you're going to try and look to switch it to hot water.
I have some
or something?
information for
Okay,
you.
all right.
Okay.
So I'm going to move acceptance of request for funding 1617-34 in the amount of $40,000.
Second.
Okay, go ahead, John.
So the $40,000 request is to replace like for like, steam boiler with steam boiler. We had a firm look into replacing with a high efficiency hot water condensing boiler, and the price for that, including there's a lot of some steam conversion and some piping in the condensing boilers, is about $175,000. But with that, there's a $50,000 possible rebate from the utility, which makes it a $125,000 roughly project with a payback of about 12 years. So it's not a slam dunk, so to speak. We're hoping the payback would be a lot sooner, and we'd save a lot more on the gas usage for the building. So, and there's some question as to whether or not the rebate will actually happen, because the gas company doesn't have much left. So we're not even sure we'll get the rebate. It's sort of still in process. So what we wanted to do is at least secure the funding for the like for the steam boiler, and we hope to wrap this up next month.
Okay.
From an environmental perspective, is it better to go with the hot water?
So I'm told hot water is a lot more efficient in terms of
It's more
temperature
efficient heat.
control, and it's a more efficient type of heat, right?
Steam has a tendency to a lot of swings in temperature. Very difficult to control steam boiler.
But that leads to the payback time, right? It's because we would use less energy.
Right. And you can lower the temperature of the water based on the temperature of the. So
what do you?
I would like to see 8 to 10 year paybacks, but 12-year payback is not the end of the world. And it's not like it's going to go away. The building's going to be here for a long time.
And really, right.
The use of the building is, we're talking about the use of the building that's going to be here be using this building for another 20, 25 years. So, no, I think that
Is it worth it to spend more money then? Is it a better system?
I would think the hot water system is a better system. It's going to be more comfortable for the people who live in the building. You get less temperature swings, you get better distribution of heat, you have better control over the heat in the building, and I think that they'll get a payback. So the payback is going to be 12 years instead of 8 to 10 years. I don't think that's the end of the world for us. I don't think that's the end of the world.
Tony, is that payback assuming the $50,000 rebate? Or
Yes.
without it?
It assumes a
No.
$50,000 rebate.
I would
So,
want to check to make sure
Yeah, right.
the rebate was available.
Of course, yeah. And that's a piece that is still pending.
So then, if we replaced it with a hot water system, what about the other boiler?
There's this includes conversion of steam. There's some redundancy in the system here because we talked about that. I think it was using the other boiler as some sort of
backup.
redundancy.
Emergency thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You can't convert steam to hot water.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was some sort of a.
So in other words, in this system, we have steam goes into the pipes and not water? Really?
Steam.
Steam, yeah.
That is archaic, right?
Yep. Well, it is. It's steam radiators in today's day and age are archaic.
They're steam radiators.
And this is the entire building except the police department?
Correct.
Okay,
Except police. Police has got their own boiler. Yeah.
Police has regular, they don't have
You
steam.
have plans for the
Leave it
building. The
regular,
plans
yeah.
for the building are to use that building, give that building a 20, 25-year life. So I think that we're looking at investment, we're looking at ROI of 10 to 12 years. Well, I don't know. I don't necessarily believe it has to be. If it's 12 years, I don't necessarily think we should discount it because it's a 12-year payback. If we weren't going to use the building for 12 years or
Right.
15 years,
Right.
yeah, but if that building's going to be in the center of town, it's going to get a lot of use for a lot of years, probably for 50 more years, let alone 20 more years.
Okay.
I think they should consider it.
Anything else?
Okay.
All those in favor? Of course, so Tony, this is you're going to have the money, but we don't know how it's going to be spent at this point.
Correct.
Okay. Next is request for funding 1617-35, and it's to replace carpet in the police department roll call area and sergeant's office with tile. I will move acceptance of request for funding 1617-35 in the amount of $4,550.
Second.
Historically, from what I can recall, you're always better replacing carpet with tile.
Especially in that room.
Carpet, right, it absorbs moisture, there's mold,
There's a lot of that room gets a lot of use.
and I'm sure the tile will be something that'll be far easier to clean and maintain,
Right.
et cetera, so I'm sure it's a good idea. Any other discussion, questions? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Next is, this is a line item transfer. This isn't coming out of our contingency fund. And it's a transfer out of their construction account to repair and stabilize the kiddie pool. So it would be available for use this season. So I will move acceptance of line item transfer 1617-36 in the amount of $11,500.
I'll second.
Okay. Go ahead, Tom.
Discussion?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll give you a little background here.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, so the first is that considering that this was finalized the last week of April, and we didn't even have a pool director, it's been remarkable the cooperation between staff, between building official, Brad Parsons, maintenance, the fire marshal, the rec department, and our mechanics. Everyone had a role in helping to accomplish to make the pool open on time. And for example, Brad worked with our building official on sensible solutions to the Silver Petroselli report for all of the electrical and other issues that came up. And he inspected he inspected it for us. Concerning the filter, again, Brad with the building official and some of the mechanics came together on an idea of, instead of replacing the filter, to pump the water to a tank and rehaul it to a location to dispose of it. So instead of spending $27,000 on a filtration system, we bought a tank and used an old fire tanker truck to haul the water. So the point is, we've spent 10, 12, the total we'll spend is about 16, 17, almost $17,000 of the $61,000 that was appropriated. So we'll have about $45,000 remaining that we probably won't need. Because at the time it was just coming together, and when some thought was done and some cooperation, we were able to come up with a lot of creative solutions. So I just wanted to give you that as some background, that there was a lot of hard work.
That's great. I mean, that's really.
So what does this 11.5 actually entail?
So we had an engineer, a structural engineer, take a look at the slab. And like indicated in the Silver Petroselli report, really the only way to stabilize the area, to guarantee it'll remain stable in the long term, is to remove the jackhammer out the slab, stabilize the ground, and re-pour a slab.
Get rid of the wood chunks.
Right. That's the
There's a residency.
That's the large Silver Petroselli report solution, which was in their report $100,000. I'm not sure how that much would cost. Probably not quite that much, but to in the short term, the engineer that we had said that we could do is you have to seal. There's a crack in the slab which is causing the erosion. So if you seal the crack, you raise up the slab and you put something underneath it to support it.
How do you raise up the slab?
Well, that's part of the process. Is you'd have to raise it with, in this case, he suggested either a foam that you could pump in there, or some other mixture that would raise the slab up, level it, and then you would put some process on the end to make it stop it from eroding for the rest of the summer. So I asked him. The first thing he said was that there's no guarantee that it's going to work. So hope it should work, but
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee it's going to work.
right.
So are we going to put children on top of it?
That's exactly my point.
I mean, so we're going to put children on top of it with no guarantee it's going to work, and what if the slab collapses
Exactly
and
what I
somebody
was
gets hurt? Who's responsible for that?
That's exactly what I was
I mean,
asked.
again, I think sometimes we have this death wish in this town. I really do.
So we hired another structural engineer on
Really?
top of
No
the report
guarantee.
we received from Petroselli
Right.
after that?
Right.
Because that night, I was asking questions about the pool, and it was not warmly received, actually laughed at, that we don't need that pool, those costs we should not consider, just consider everything in front of us, unless, I was wrong. Because we even talked about securing it, and how we're going to secure it in case somebody either fell in, or if there's standing water, that's another health hazard. So with the rec department, it was presented that the kiddie pool should not be an option. We had options in front of us that night, and no matter what the engineer said, this kiddie pool was not an issue. Nobody was going to use it or whatever. So we didn't have to address it. We didn't, and now we hired another structural engineer, and apparently, I just don't understand how we got from that meeting to now here, where the kiddie pool has to be addressed. and now it's a necessary. And also, we're spending all these resources, which are really, again, I think Public Works, I've been very involved in Public Works in other lives, so I'm always impressed. So we're using all these resources for this, and it's great. But usually, they're very busy anyway. So they're being pulled off other tasks to actually do that, because I know they're not sitting around like Maytag repairmen. So that's not involved in the cost here. The labor that we are spending and absorbing.
There was a lot of labor that went on to not a lot of expenditures direct for equipment or consultants, but a lot of labor went in.
Yeah, I
was
would
involved
think.
with that.
Was there any discussion at the Board of Selectmen about the safety concerns?
The selectmen felt confident that the alternative could work. We understood there was no guarantee. We're not sure there was a guarantee with the other one either. And that it seems at this point, really, we're looking at the 1-year solution, not the permanent. We've done that with the entire pool. I can tell you candidly, I went into the meeting thinking that we shouldn't do it. Rec made a very strong case for how membership is going very well. People care about not having the
That's
pool
the
for their
standout.
kids. This chart that you just gave, this is the chart they gave us. The new pool director was there. She and John Adamovich said that they actually called everyone who had been a member before, that they have about 25 families that they feel pretty confident would join if there were a kiddie
Well, how
pool.
many families do they have now?
So
They have, go ahead.
there's 80. There were
87.
actually two joined yesterday. So he said it's up to 89, I think.
Or
he said?
90, I
Or
think.
90.
Yeah.
And 25 are going to withdraw if we do not.
No,
No.
25 will
Join
join.
additionally.
So even if you, I think it, the way I thought about it was not to count on any additional revenue from it, but more as the community center that it's become, that if there really are even 15 or 20 more families that are interested, and to look at it as a 1-year investment as this entire pool was. And Karen, I agree with you about all the time that town employees put in, but they certainly did a spectacular job. I thought it was a miracle that the pool opened at all. I never expected it. And, on those hot days, people really started turning out. I think that, for me, that was the crucial issue on whether or not to try to fund the pool for 1 more year, is that we do lack community center in Woodbridge. It's one thing people really care about. We have so many new young families. I get it, it's a tricky question. I think that we'll know if it works or not when we do it. That was my impression.
Correct.
It's not that we're going to do it and worry that in a month it's going to collapse. They'll do it and then either it will have worked or it won't.
Right.
That's what I thought.
That's right. Yeah.
The other question that we were concerned about is how long will this all take? When will we
That's a
know who's going to
legitimate
do it
concern,
and
is how long it's
will it
gonna
be?
take.
So
How long is it going to take?
we don't know the
I have no
answer yet.
idea.
And so I thought that since Tony still has more work to do to find that out, if it's not going to be done in a reasonable time, to bring it back to the new board to say, do you really want to go ahead with this if it's, if it's not going to be ready till August?
I honestly don't know how long it's going to take to. I mean, there's a lot of steps involved. You
It
have
seems to me that the money is there. So, the Board
Exactly.
of Selectmen, the money is there. It's already been approved.
Right.
So the money is there, and they can spend $12,000 of that money if they choose. The Board of Selectmen can spend $12,000 if they choose to do that. Money's already been approved.
I think it doesn't have to come to the Board of Finance? Maybe not.
It wasn't approved for that purpose of. Typically, when we identified a specific purpose for the funding,
Right.
it wasn't for this repair.
Right.
So we
It's
have
like a
to.
line item transfer.
It's a line item transfer, exactly.
It's a line item
Yeah.
transfer, but
That's
there
all it
were
is.
other repairs that were done.
That didn't cost as much that we can use the
Right.
money from. Correct.
Right, and I think it certainly made a big difference at the selectmen's meeting that the money had already been appropriated for the pool. It wasn't for this, but the savings were so dramatic,
Yes.
from 60,000 down to 16,000.
No, that's good. I think that the communication should be better, because I know that meeting, I go at the tapes, that it was talked about how we were going to secure it because it needs kiddie pool.
Well,
So that should be, for whatever board's there, just have the communication. The rec department shouldn't so sternly say, we don't need that, that's not going to be anything, just approve this, we don't need that kiddie pool, we could secure it. And then all of a sudden, it's a big thing. So I think that that's where the communication, the transparency.
Well, I think though, Karen, that if they had not achieved these savings, they wouldn't be coming back asking for this money. So in all fairness to them, they're seeing how do they actually expand their effort.
But in all fairness to us, okay, the people that did all that work, okay, are on the payroll, get paid to do it. So if there was a cost to them to do that, I mean, it's not like those are free dollars.
No.
There is a cost involved in doing it. And it's great that we were able to do it ourselves and save that much money, okay? And it's great to be there, but it was an expense there. We used town personnel,
Yes.
time and materials and time to personnel to do it, rather than taking the $60,000 and contracting to an outside contractor to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic. That's fantastic that we're able to do that.
Good point.
So the question is, okay, what do we do? What do we want to do?
You know, my feeling is if this were, we need a new something. Talking about a kiddie pool. I'm just concerned that, God forbid, if they're going to know after they do this, I just wouldn't want to have the thought in my mind that something happened while kids were in that pool, or it's a scary thought.
I just wanted to know who's going to determine and what criteria are we going to use to determine, number one, whether it's successful
Right.
and whether it's going to be safe to put young kids in that pool.
Right.
Okay? And who is going to be responsible for that, and what criteria are we going to use, and who is the individual
Right,
to
who's going
sign
to make
off
that
on it?
determination?
Who's going to make, and who's going to sign off on that? Okay?
Who's going to make that determination?
I want to know who's going to sign off on that before I vote.
I got a funny feeling though.
I'd like to know who's going to be
This
responsible.
is going to take time, I think. I mean, you got to get somebody there to lift it up and pump foam under there. And I mean, when is this going to get done? I mean, we're
So that's the point of saying, for how many weeks would the pool need to have this offered to, members
Yeah.
to make it worthwhile?
right.
So we asked that question, and John Adamovich didn't want to say a specific date, concerned that if it was longer than that. I mean, he said August 1st, and that sounds like pretty well into the season.
Yeah.
So it seems to me if the timing is long, if it's really going to be well into the summer, as I said, I think it should go back to the boards because it's information that they didn't have. I think in terms of the safety, I don't know who guarantees it, but it was my understanding, perhaps incorrectly, that whoever does this work, who's recommending it, will know when it's done if it worked. It's not that they're saying, maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I heard it. That we'll know then if it works. Not, I don't think we have to worry at the end, that at 2 weeks in, it looks like it worked and then it collapses. But it's a good question to put to
But the
them.
timeline on this could be,
The timeline,
may not be able to get done to the
You
end.
got to get somebody.
That's
These guys
right.
are busy. You got to get somebody.
I mean, you make
That's
the
true.
These guys are all busy. I don't. What guys do this kind of work?
I have no
don't even know.
idea. I don't even know what the-
a slab lifter. I mean, what do you, who does this kind of work?
I mean, my feeling is
Slab.
that if it's not available for at least 6 weeks in the summer before the kids go back to school, it's not worth doing.
Right. Plus the impact is 25 families will not join. If we have this, they may join.
Yeah, right.
That's true. I don't think you can't know how many will join.
If we can get some more definitive, and again, there'll be another board meeting with the new board in July. And the funds are there. I think really, if we need a timeline,
Yeah, I
makes
don't-
sense, there should be a timeline. Can
Don't
they
have
get
that
somebody to come in
information.
and do it? Can they do it with,
Yeah,
do they have a
put out the bid
contractor
or whatever,
or
find
something they can
somebody.
do within the
I
timeline
have
they
no
want to
clue.
do
We
it?
may not even find anyone
Right,
to do
we might not even find anyone to do it.
The foam contractor, let's see. They have concerns that the edge would need to be closed off so the product would not leak, and that the foam contractor is not guaranteeing it's going to work. So then, in that case,
Right.
there's a different method where you use some sort of a dry compact concrete.
I've actually seen a commercial on TV. This guy Larry Janeski, who's the he advertises that he does this with cement, where
Right.
and he shows you if your pool deck is out of
The
this.
cement, that's the
But
method.
that's okay if you're at the house, but you're talking about a public situation with a lot of kids. I mean, maybe they need like 10 or 12 of like me and Andy and 10 or 12 guys to go there and jump up and down. That'll.
Thanks, man.
I included myself.
That's an invitation.
But why would we want to? So we can get her?
Let's see if it can support the weight.
No, what,
You probably need
again,
this
the
structural
money
engineer
is
to come back
there.
to check
I
the
mean,
integrity.
the money is available. Why don't, I would think that what you really need is
Well,
a little more information
right.
in terms of
Yeah, no, but
timeline and everything else.
I don't think we have that much time.
But I think because it's so close to the beginning of the pool season, what I would respectfully suggest, not really being a member of the committee,
Anyway.
is if you approve it,
Subject to.
this can go ahead
Subject to.
with subject to certain conditions, and one is that
We're gonna have to leave it in Tony's hands
the town
again.
council. you
I'm
know,
gonna
the
make a
town-
motion.
Okay, so, yes.
I think I already did. Didn't I?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. Did I make a motion on this
Did
one?
you make a
Yeah.
motion?
We already made a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
It was already
Sandy did.
seconded.
I did.
Sandy,
For-
second the motion.
For purposes
Okay.
of.
All right, so I think, all right, so if we decide to approve this, obviously, as you, we're gonna lay it in Tony's lap. And
That's right.
I mean, depending on the timing of
God
it,
gave us Tony.
yeah, but depending on the time, if you're not gonna get anybody there until July the 14th, and it's gonna take a week, and that's ridiculous.
Right.
But I think you have to count on the fact that that information will go back
them
to
the option.
the Board of Selectmen, it'll be the new
None.
board to
Yep.
look at that.
So subject to, again, Tony, so what we're saying to you is if we approve this, you're gonna obviously take the next steps.
Right.
And make it, and I don't know who you'd seek out to find, if you
I
don't
don't-
think the timing is right, I guess you'd have to go back to the new first selectman, or if it's done before June 30th.
Yep.
Can't get
So that-
done
you
December
understand?
1st, we're talking
Right,
about
I'm with
numbers.
you.
Okay,
Yep.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, okay. I just want to say one thing, picking up on what Karen said. I ask a lot of questions out of concern for the town, out of concern for things being done correctly. When we discussed this, I raised two concerns. One was exactly what you said, Karen, and I remember you basically, and that is, you're really going to be able to open this pool without a kiddie pool? And I heard snickering and laughing, and we don't need it, and out of order, of course. And the other point I brought up, I remember, was lack of supervision. Without the golf course there, kids are going to be running around. I hate to see them get in trouble. You remember that, guys, right? And the same thing. Oh, it's not a problem. So the only point I'm bringing out is, when we're doing our job here, I just would appreciate, let us do our job. I mean, I'm not trying to be a pain in the rear end, but I bring points up because, and so this proved to be a point. They said, oh no, it's not. We don't even need the kiddie pools. It doesn't matter. And here we are. So I just think people should respect what we do and what the Board of Selectmen do, because they get a lot of that too. And just let us do our jobs, okay? That's all. So Tony, good luck. And I'll be more than happy to, and certainly, Andy's got knowledge of this stuff that none of us have. You can bounce it off him too.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I will.
I'm all finished.
That's before he
For the
bounces in the
Not
pool.
For the next 15
Not
minutes.
available.
Okay, finally, we have a line item transfer in the town clerks to purchase a shelving unit, and it's for land record indices. It's 2,875. I'll move accept the line item transfer 1617-37 in the amount of 2,875.
Second.
Any discussion on this? All those in favor? Aye? Okay. It's on tape, Karen. Okay. Approval of minutes. I think we just have one set, and it's our regular monthly meeting on Thursday, May 18th. I'll move acceptance of the minutes of Thursday, May 18th, 2017 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion, corrections, anything? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. First Selectmen's report, Ellen?
Thank you.
Your final First Selectmen's report?
Yes. So first I'll start with the usual kind of report. I want to tell you something about what's going on at the country club property. We've had a few, very few, but vocal complaints that it looks terrible, it's not mowed, it doesn't look good. And my sense is that's from people who expect it to look like a golf course. We had a little back and forth last night about whether or not it's a golf course. One member of our board said it is. I say it isn't.
Open space.
And Tony and I took a ride out there to look at it, and to my eye, it looks beautiful. It's now a field, and it's just a beautiful piece of property. Adam is delighted with how it's growing. The wildlife sanctuary that it's become, he knows much more about this than I do, but one of the things that's really charming when he tells you that we now have a wood thrush, which is something that's very rare, and it's come back. He's putting up bluebird houses. The diversity of wildlife is really striking. And one of the reasons we've been able to do that is because we've let the grass grow, And as I said, it looks beautiful. If you're expecting a manicured golf course, it looks bad. But if you take it for what it is, it's very beautiful. We've also looked at what the appropriate plan should be to maintain it as open space or undeveloped land at this time, and to control the growth of weeds that you don't want. And that probably requires mowing twice a year. Let me step back for a moment. Right now, he is mowing along the cart paths because those are being used for walking and biking. So he's maintaining that. Where they have disintegrated to an extent that they pose a danger, he's going to block them off so that they're not all available. There was a bridge that was deteriorating, and he's taken that down. So he's looking at it from a safety point of view, but to maintain the trails. For the rest of the mowing, it's a huge job. Obviously, it's 150 acres, and not something that we have the equipment or manpower for. But we have looked into perhaps contracting out for that to be done. It would be done twice a year. This year, just once. It would be in the fall. We met with Chris Sorensen, who actually has the equipment and knows all about this, as Adam does. And so that's a possibility, and that would still maintain the wildlife. We also now, of course, will not be using pesticides. It will be in conformance with our organic practices. And we looked into haying it to see if we could actually sell the hay for feed for animals, but because of the pesticide use on the property, that certainly can't be done for a while, but it will still be mowed and maintained. So if anybody's watching, and this idea that there's no plan and it's just, it's unkempt, take a look for yourself. It's really beautiful. And Adam told me, actually today he went out there, there were so many people, it's such a beautiful day. People were walking and just marveling at the beauty. So we have that now, and it still is available should there be a proposal from a private entity that the town at some point wants to accept. It's not dedicated open space, so it's still available for that kind of development.
Not to interrupt you, but I read an article yesterday, and I think it was Business Insider, and the headline of the article was "Abandoned Golf Courses Becoming the Norm in America," and it talks about how many golf courses are being abandoned because they're just not feasible to keep open anymore. And I forget how many, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of golf courses that are just being abandoned because it's just, people aren't playing golf as much, and it's just, we have them and they're just not getting used. So
And we learned that.
Yeah, right. So I just want to bring that up.
I also wanted to mention that yesterday the Board of Selectmen passed 2 ordinance amendments that I think are significant and people should know about. One is we now have a leash law in Connecticut. You have to keep your pets on a leash on town property and when they're not on your own property. This was requested by the animal control officer and Adam because of incidents with dogs attacking other dogs and attacking people. So we have a leash law. We're looking into signage where appropriate. And we also strengthened our town gun law. We had been contacted about a year ago by someone who pointed out that our gun law was too stringent in that we prohibited using a firearm within 500 yards of a dwelling, but state law makes it 500 feet. So we had to change that to be in conformance with state law. So while we were doing that, we took a good hard look at it, and the Board of Selectmen voted unanimously to strengthen our law so that guns and other weapons are no longer permitted in any town building or on any town property. There are only 2 exceptions. One is for law enforcement personnel, as appropriate under law, and the other is for transporting weapons on our roads because people have to be able to do that if they have a gun permit. And as I said last night, I think this change really comports with what people in Woodbridge would have expected in any event. You don't expect people to have their guns at the playground or in the library or when they're, with you on the Fitzgerald walking trail. So we did that last night, and we had very supportive public comments for that. With respect to the state budget, I can't imagine that it will happen by June 30th.
No,
They're talking about the fall now.
The fall,
and
yeah.
I want to say what an extraordinary job this board has done to make us as prepared as we could possibly be for what's coming. A lot of towns are in difficult situations, and certainly it's going to be very hard when we find out what does happen, but I don't think we could be any better prepared than we are. So Matt, I want to thank you and the entire board for preparing us. And I just want to thank you all again for everything you've done for the town and everything you've taught me.
I'll a couple of remarks to make.
And-
Okay, liaison reports. We met at Amity, I think, on Monday. They're currently in excess of $1 million surplus. And they discussed that they've learned that they can set aside 1% of their 1% of their operating budget into a capital non-recurring fund without even identifying the projects, which didn't go over very well. So that could be upwards of $450,000.
If they're going to return money, this is the year to return it.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I think I sent you all a copy of the letter from Orange where they've requested that all the money be returned. And so there's going to be some obvious battling going on with this. I wanted to send one from us, but for now I just thought let's this came out of nowhere, this capital non-recurring situation. And I'm sure when it gets out there, it's not going to be entirely popular, but so there's a lot more to come on that. But
Why would we not send a letter?
I could. Yeah, I could. If everybody thinks you'd like me to send a similar letter, I'd be happy to.
I mean, I
Consensus?
think they need to hear from the towns that this is really
Yeah.
important. This is our money that
Yeah.
we gave to them.
Yeah.
If they don't need it, it's not at their discretion to decide what they want to do with it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And this is the year that all three towns are going to need this money.
Mhm.
Absolutely, there's no way that we will escape
If
this.
everybody agrees, I'll
Yes.
do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have to take an official?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm just going to do it on my own.
Fine.
As long as I know that there's a consensus.
Okay.
So there's going to be a lot more coming up about this. Other than that, they graduated yesterday. I guess it went well. Everything is running smoothly there. And okay. Paul, do you have anything?
We don't meet until Monday.
Okay.
And I can be there.
Okay.
Mainly, they're on budget, and I think mainly the biggest thing is overtime. Is staffing levels are good. We have people on the road, and overtime is going down. And I guess Tony talks to them about, so basically that's it.
Sandy?
Okay, Library Commission met on Monday, and the book sale was a huge success. They actually held it in the Woodbridge room, which they opened the door, the old door to the library, which lots of people had actually never seen that room. So it was really wonderful for them from that perspective. Based on what was presented at the Connecticut Library Association meeting, there is actually a program called the Museum Pass Manager. It's a software package, and the library is going to purchase it. It allows patrons to actually make their reservation, put their tickets at home, so they actually don't have to come to the library to get their museum or other passes. The library did receive the state support of $12,383. It's probably their last level of support they'll receive from the state for quite a while. So they're going to quickly make sure that gets deposited and that is reported. The projector actually broke in the library, and the commission actually had a special meeting, and they approved funds to replace that, and that's on order now. And the staffing changes that they had promised with the budget reductions have been implemented at this point, so they're all set for the beginning of the year. And the farmers market is going to change slightly. It's going to be in July and August, and it's going to be before the concerts on the green, and the farmers market itself will move to the green, so that it'll kind of be all one type of activity. And then it will be before movies that are going to be held on the green at dusk. So it'll be a couple hours before that. So it'll be the concerts and the movies when the farmers market will be held. And they got lots of maker program ideas from their attendance at the Library Association, and they plan on implementing those. And then the Board of Ed Finance Committee met that same evening, and right now what they are showing in their statements is a $14,037 loss but they really do plan to bring that down to zero. So there won't be any amount of money that the town will need to contribute to them meeting their budget. So they really have looked very hard at this. It's due to health insurance, basically retirees and the change in terms of what they needed to pay, and releasing custodial overtime and the dollars they had set aside for interns, allowing them to do that. So if you recall, it was basically in the high 50s last month. It's now 14,000, and hopefully will be zero by the end of the year. They are actually starting next year with an anticipated deficit related to health insurance and special education. So they will keep track of that and report that back as those expenses are incurred. That's it.
Okay. Before we adjourn, again, this is our last meeting. The new Board of Finance will be appointed next Wednesday. I believe the new Board of Selectmen are meeting to make the appointments. So we'll find out officially then who's on the Board of Finance and every other board in town. I would just like to thank all those present here tonight. I think the past 2 years we've done, toot our horn, but we've done a spectacular job of getting budget increases down below 2%, with a lot higher starting point. And as I've said numerous times, unfortunately, we're missing one that I would say about two, is that this has been the finest Board of Finance I've had the pleasure to serve with. And whatever happens, I'll certainly keep that in mind. I'm hopeful that the board is close to what we have here tonight, but we won't know until next Wednesday. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to wish Ellen much happiness.
Thank you.
The 4 years that Ellen has been here, she's taken some serious. I got a little bit of a taste of it, as you all know, in a couple of meetings, but Ellen's been enduring this for 4 years. I mean, she stepped into a situation in which really she had nothing to do with it, that's this country club. And yet she's taken some, and I told her privately, and I'll say it publicly, I'm just amazed at how well she handles it. She's a real pro at sitting there and just listening to this stuff and answering respectfully. And I know she's probably churning inside as she's doing it, but she's done a spectacular job of dealing with the terrible abuse she's taken for 4 years. So I wish you the best in your.
Thank you.
I'm not going to call it retirement. I'm going to talk about
Next
your
step.
next step. Enjoy your family, and the town is indebted to you. So
Thank you.
thank you for being with us these 4 years. Okay, and with that, I'll make a motion we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We all know where we're going now.